You think booking a ride is safe, but sometimes the scariest part isn't the road ahead.
I watched my phone screen glow. The words, "Your Uber has arrived," lighting up against the darkness of the empty street. The headlights rolled up slow, too slow, like the car had been waiting there all along. I opened the back door, slipped inside, and that's when the driver turned his head just slightly and said without a hint of question, "You're back already?" I laughed nervously, thinking he must have mistaken me for someone else. No, I just booked you a minute ago," I said. The driver didn't smile. His eyes stayed locked on the rear-view mirror, scanning me like I was lying. "Someone's been riding back there all night," he muttered, his voice flat, like he wasn't really talking to me, just stating a fact. I froze for half a second before forcing a chuckle, trying to shake it off. The car smelled faintly of burnt plastic and something metallic, like rust, maybe blood. Though I didn't dare give that thought too much weight, leaning forward I fastened my seatbelt. "Well, I'm here now, so," I said, trailing off when he suddenly pressed the child lock button. A click echoed across the doors. We pulled away from the curb. The city looked emptier than I remembered it. Every shop closed. Every street lamp casting sickly yellow light just out of reach. My phone app said his name was Daniel, 39 trips completed, rating 5 stars. But what unsettled me most wasn't his driving. It was how often his eyes flicked to the rear view mirror, not at me, but at the hollow stretch of shadow right beside me in the back seat. "Do you, drive late pretty often?" I asked, desperate to make this feel normal. "All night," he said quickly. "Same routes, same passengers." He glanced in the mirror again, at nothing. "But tonight? They're restless," I swallowed, my throat suddenly dry. "Who's restless?" The driver tightened his grip on the wheel. "You don't hear them?" His voice sank even lower. "Sometimes they laugh, sometimes they just breathe, but tonight, they've been moving." I scanned the empty space next to me. The seat was clean, not a single dent in the cushion, though I swore the faint scent of perfume lingered there. Floral and sharp, like a wilted rose pressed too long in a book. I shifted my bag onto my lap as if holding onto it would tether me to something real. "There's no one else here," I insisted, my voice thinner than I meant. He didn't reply. Instead, he slowed the car as if distracted by something behind him. His eyes, wide and unblinking in the mirror, met mine. "Don't say that," he whispered. "You'll make her angry." Something icy spread across my spine. My heart started racing, every beat making me more aware of the silence pressing in on the car. That silence wasn't empty. It felt watched. I pressed my hand against the door handle, testing it, still locked. My thumb hovered over the emergency call button on the app. Then, before I could tap it, the car suddenly swerved to the side of the road, came to a halt under a flickering streetlight. The driver turned fully in his seat now, his face pale in the light, sweat glistening across his forehead. "Who are you?" he asked me, voice trembling. Not angry, but afraid. I opened my mouth to answer, but he cut me off, eyes darting past my shoulder to the empty seat. "No, not you," he shouted. His whole body stiffened, hands gripping the steering wheel hard enough that I thought it might crack. "She came back," the words dug into me. My chest tightened as if someone invisible was pressing down on my ribs. I whipped around, desperate to see what he was screaming at, but the seat was bare, just smooth fabric beneath the weak light sneaking in through the window. Yet, the air shifted, heavy, pressing, like someone unseen had leaned closer. "No," the driver whispered. His eyes brimmed with tears now. He slammed his fist on the dashboard. "I told you to stay gone." The car rocked. Not much, just barely, but enough for me to feel it, like something unseen had shifted weight inside with us. That was it. I lunged for the door handle, yanking at it again and again until somehow it gave way. I don't know if the lock slipped or if something else let me out. I stumbled into the street, gasping. But when I turned back, the car didn't move. The driver was still inside, staring at the same spot in the back seat as if glued there, whispering, his lips forming words I couldn't hear. I backed away, fumbling with my phone. My ride was gone from the app. No record of it, no receipt, nothing. When I finally looked up again, the car had vanished. Not driven away, just gone, as if it had never been there at all. Yet the faint smell of wilted roses clung to my jacket. Sharp and undeniable, no matter how hard I tried to brush it off. I never take Ubers at night anymore. And sometimes, when I sit alone in my room, I'll feel it again. That sudden shift in the air, that pressing weight on my chest. Somewhere I think that same backseat is still waiting, and someone is still riding in it. I noticed it the second we missed my street. The driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror, smiled faintly and said, "Don't worry. The GPS knows where you're supposed to go." The tone wasn't reassuring. It was final. It had been a long night. I just wanted to get home, collapse into bed, and shut out the world. The streets were strangely still, quieter than usual, as if the whole city was holding its breath. When the black sedan pulled up and confirmed my name, I slid into the back seat with relief. The interior smelled faintly of cold leather, and the dashboard glowed a pale blue from the navigation system. "Apartment on Walker Street?" the driver asked. "Yeah," I said, already scrolling through my phone. We drove for a few minutes in silence, the hum of the engine steady, the streetlights whirring past like slow-motion blinks. Then I noticed we were approaching the turn leading to my neighborhood, except the driver didn't slow down. He stayed in the right lane, pressing on past the exit. I leaned forward slightly, clearing my throat. "Hey, I think you missed the turn." His eyes darted up, catching mine in the mirror. His voice was calm, unnervingly deliberate. "No, GPS is taking us somewhere else." My stomach tightened. I glanced at my phone screen where the app still displayed my exact destination, the correct route, complete with the missed turn flashing red. "No, look, it says it right here, Walker Street." He shook his head, almost pitying me. "App's glitch, but the car knows. Sometimes it reroutes for more important destinations." The word important lodged in my chest, heavy and wrong. "Well, I'd rather go to my destination," I snapped, trying to sound firm. He didn't answer. The dashboard screen flickered, the soft blue map bleeding into static before restabilizing. The new route ran through empty back roads, lines curling away from the city like veins stretching into nothing. "You need to make a U-turn," I said louder now, pulse rising. "Relax," he murmured. "You'll see soon." A cold draft slipped through the slightly cracked window, carrying a damp smell like wet soil. I glanced outside. The familiar stores were gone. In their place were narrow stretches of road, lined with fields that looked darker than they should have, as though the horizon itself refused to catch the moonlight. I tried calling a friend, but the signal spun endlessly, no bars. I tapped back to the Uber app, thumb hovering over the emergency 911 option, except it was grayed out, unresponsive, like the whole interface had frozen. The driver noticed me fidgeting. His voice softened into something almost fatherly. "Phones won't work if she doesn't want them to." I felt my blood go cold. "She who?" His lips curled into that same faint smile. He didn't answer. I pressed myself against the seat, equal parts fear and disbelief clawing at me. Every instinct screamed to get out, but the doors, when I checked the handle, were locked tight. The headlights cut through a stretch of trees now, branches looming like bony fingers reaching out. The road narrowed, cracked in places, weeds pushing through as if it hadn't been driven on in years. My heart pounded so hard I thought he'd hear it. "Stop the car," I said. My voice cracked despite my effort to stay calm. I said stop. The driver tilted his head, hands relaxed on the wheel. "If I stop now, you'll never see what you were meant to. Don't you want to know why it brought you here?" The word had hit me harder than anything else. He wasn't talking about an app. He wasn't even talking about himself. Something shifted in the air, a pressure I couldn't explain, as though the space inside the car grew smaller, denser. My breath fogged the glass, except his side of the windshield stayed perfectly clear. That was when the faint scent of roses mixed with the damp soil. The same cloying smell I'd felt once before, inside a funeral home. Panic surged. I unbuckled my seatbelt, hitting the window button. Nothing. My fists pounded against the glass until my knuckles stung, but no sound carried outside. It was like the car was sealed inside its own sphere. "Almost there," he whispered. His voice didn't sound like his anymore. Too layered. Too crowded. As if several others were speaking through him in fragmented tones. The dashboard bled static again, the GPS line spiraling downward into a single, pulsing red dot. The screen whispered faintly, too faint to make out words, but I heard something. breathing. My body shook uncontrollably. The dark road finally broke into a clearing, the trees opening like a mouth. The headlights revealed a shape, an old house, sagging, windows black as sockets. No number on the mailbox. No sign of life. Just waiting. He slowed, gravel crunching beneath the tires. I couldn't think of a plan. I grabbed the lock again, yanked as hard as I could. Nothing. My hand slammed against the emergency release for the trunk, a desperate move. A click sounded from the back. The driver turned suddenly, eyes wide, his expression almost terrified. "Don't get out now. If you step down here, you'll never come back." That was all I needed to hear. I bolted out the back door that had somehow given way, sprinting into the trees before he could grab me. Branches whipped my arms, roots caught my shoes, but I didn't stop until city lights finally glimmered faintly in the distance. When I looked back, the road was gone. No house, no headlights. Just darkness, stretching on forever. By the time I stumbled back to a populated street, my app showed no trip history, no record of any of it. But sometimes, when I open a map on my phone, I'll see it flicker, hesitate, and try to reroute me down roads that don't exist anymore, toward a single red dot, waiting. The road wasn't supposed to look like this. The streetlights were gone, the pavement had turned to gravel, and rows of crumbling houses leaned against the darkness like broken teeth. The car slowed to a crawl, tires crunching in the silence, and then the driver's voice drifted back to me, barely more than a whisper. "We've arrived." It started as nothing unusual. I'd stayed late at a friend's place, and instead of bothering with the bus, I called an Uber. The night air felt crisp, the city alive with its usual background hum, distant traffic, the occasional bark of a dog, laughter from some bar half a block away. Normal. When the car pulled up, a dark sedan with the Uber logo glowing faintly on the dashboard, I felt relief. "Heading to Mosswood Apartments?" the driver asked, glancing back briefly. "Yeah, that's right," I nodded. We pulled into the main road. The engine had this low, steady purr, and for the first 10 minutes nothing seemed out of the ordinary. I leaned against the cold glass, scrolling through my phone as the glow of strip malls and gas stations slid by. But then the driver started speaking, casually at first. "Been out late?" he asked. "Yeah," I replied, a little curt. I wasn't in the mood for small talk. "You live alone?" he followed up. That question pulled me out of my screen. It was too blunt, too invasive. Yeah. Why?" He shrugged, his hand steady on the wheel. "Just curious. Most people don't." I gave him a tight smile and went quiet again, deciding I wouldn't say another word. Something about his tone unsettled me. It wasn't friendly curiosity. It was cataloging. Minutes bled into each other, and gradually I started noticing where we were heading. The usual bright streets melted away into darker, narrower lanes. The air seemed heavier outside, tinted with that damp earth smell of areas that don't see much traffic. I leaned forward. "This isn't the right way. You missed a turn back there." The driver didn't answer immediately. He adjusted the steering wheel as if following something invisible. "It's faster this way," he said flatly. I checked my app, but the route looked off. The glowing line twisted into streets I didn't recognize, roads with no names on them. And then the app froze, blinking, before showing a dead-end road ahead. "Seriously, I don't think this is right. Just turn around," I said, trying to mask the rising edge in my voice. He gave a soft chuckle, shaking his head. "We're almost there." My chest tightened. Almost where? That was when the car slowed. The concrete had turned to dirt, the vibration of uneven ground rattling through my seat. The street ahead narrowed into rows of abandoned houses, the kind with boarded-up windows, peeling paint, porches half collapsed. Their silhouettes seemed to lean together, blocking the moonlight. Every single one was silent, as if they'd been empty for decades. The headlights swept across splintered fences. Shards of broken glass glittered faintly in the gravel. The driver's voice slipped through the stillness, barely audible, almost reverent. "We've arrived." My body went cold. "This isn't my address," I snapped, heart racing. He turned his head slightly, eyes catching mine in the rearview mirror. His lips curved into the faintest smile. Isn't it? I scrambled for the door handle, yanking hard. Locked. My pulse hammered against my ears as I pressed against the cold metal, the night outside seeming to creep closer with every second. The houses loomed in the headlights, their hollow windows staring back like watchful eyes. "Let me out," I demanded, my voice shaking. The driver didn't answer. He lowered the gear, letting the car crawl forward another few feet before stopping completely. Then, in the suffocating dark, he slowly turned off the engine. The hum died, leaving only silence. Thick, oppressive silence. For a moment, nothing moved. Then, I swore I heard it. A sound, faint but distinct, the creak of one of those abandoned porch steps sinking under weight. My breath caught. I stared through the glass, every nerve in my body firing. There was no one there, or at least not anyone I could see. But the sound came again, closer this time, deliberate, like something, or someone, was circling the car in the shadows. I spun around. "Who's out there?" I whispered, though I didn't really want an answer. The driver kept facing forward, hands resting loosely on the wheel. He didn't speak, didn't even blink, just stared ahead into the dark, as if waiting. The faint smell of rot began to filter into the car, earthy and damp, like wet wood left to decay. My lungs filled with it until every breath burned. "Open the door," I said again, my voice breaking into a plea. At last, he turned his head toward me fully, his face unreadable in the dim light. "You're home now." The words sank into me like stone. That was the moment I threw myself at the opposite door, kicking it until the lock gave way. Somehow, by sheer frenzy or luck, it popped open. I stumbled out, shoes sinking into the dirt road. The night swallowed me whole, colder here than anywhere else. My breaths came sharp and ragged as I sprinted away from the car, away from the houses, refusing to look back. But after a minute, when I couldn't hear the crunch of my own steps over the pounding of my heartbeat, I realized something terrifying. It didn't sound like I was running alone. There were other footsteps, light, uneven just behind me. I didn't stop. I didn't dare look. Eventually, somehow, I broke into a main street again, familiar lights, the distant sound of cars. I kept running until I was surrounded by people, breathing so hard I couldn't speak. When I finally checked my phone, the Uber trip history was gone. No name, no car, no receipt, like it had never happened. And yet, nights since then, I've awoken to the faint creak of floorboards outside my bedroom door. The same sound I heard on that road, where the driver had whispered, "We've arrived."